All right, you guys, time for activity number 5, lichens, the one you've all been waiting for. This is our last activity for the Fungi 1802 lab. It's my favorite because lichens are my jam. So stay tuned. There's some extra videos, and you need to complete question number 12. All right, so what are lichens? Lichens are a compositive organism between a fungus, which is the mycobiont, myco meaning mushroom, and algae, which go through photosynthesis, and they're plants, so the photobiont. So in this partnership, the fungus receives carbohydrates while the algae receives a place to live and reproduce and protection from the environment. Algae or lichens are sometimes described as fungi who have discovered farming. So they're like farming the algae within them and getting the sugars from them. So remember that algae are free living plants, so they can produce their own sugar, but fungi are not free, or well, they're free living, but they need something to produce their own sugar. And so in the case of these fungi, they have to have an algal partner to be able to live. So there are 3 main growth forms of lichens. So you have foliose, which are leaf-like. You see them pretty frequently on trees. There's fruticose, which are like bush-like or hair-like. They're really sometimes bushy. If you've ever seen a big reindeer lichen, like up in mountains around North Carolina, or if you've seen pictures of reindeer like in the Arctic, those are fruticose lichens. And then crustose lichens, which are really directly attached to their substrate. It's almost like they've been spray painted on, like you couldn't really pick them off even if you wanted to. Okay, so those different growth forms, the crustose, so there are different layers to a lichen, and those layers are made up of the fungal component and the algae component. So everything except for the algal layer is made up of fungi. So the crustose, it's so directly attached to its substrate that it doesn't have like a lower border layer. The upper cortex and the algal layer, and then this medulla, which is the middle layer, all sit directly on the rock or the substrate that they're on. Okay, so that's crustose. Foliose do have an upper and a lower layer, so they have an upper cortex and a lower cortex with a medulla, and then the algal layer kind of sits toward the top. Remember that algae needs sunlight, and so the algae has to be able to get some of the sun that shines through the upper layer here. But there's rhizines that attach the foliose lichens to their substrate. You can see them kind of sticking out under these lichens here. Okay, and then the last is fruticose lichens. So fruticose lichens are like a tube, you can think of them as. So they don't have an upper and lower cortex because they're just circular. They just have just a big upper cortex. They still have an algal layer, but it extends all the way around it, and the medulla is in the middle there. Okay, there's a cool website about different lichen things. So remember that if you were to, because there's algae and fungi in a lichen, if you cut into it, there are different layers of it. So you guys are going to have to label this. So if you went from the top down, this would be the upper surface, is the upper cortex. And then there's the algal layer. You can see the big blobs here. They're probably, these look like green algae. And then this is the cortex in the middle. It's the medulla. And then on the bottom, it would be maybe the lower cortex if it was like a foliose lichen. Yeah, lichens are really, really cool organisms. They're super understudied and I think underappreciated, but they hold a lot of diversity and are pretty hardy organisms. They can kind of live sometimes where others cannot. So yeah, definitely watch the extra videos about lichens too. You can see the different, you can see the different layers, kind of a comparison here. So the thallus, just like we saw with liverworts, the thallus is the main vegetative body. And then there's different tissue arrangements in the different growth forms. And because it's kind of an odd partnership with a lichen, so if you ever see any sexually reproductive parts like little cups, they are only the fungus gets to sexually reproduce. So they can asexually reproduce and just kind of break off a part of them, but only the fungi spreads fungi spores. All right, that should be enough to answer your lichen questions. If you have any more lichen questions, you can watch me defend my thesis in a couple of weeks about cliff lichens. That is all.